Did it go?
Live.
There it is. Okay. So welcome everyone. We're very glad that you are here. Perhaps some of you came to this training last week when we had some technical difficulties. My understanding is that we've got those issues resolved and we will be able to demonstrate the site for you today. So let's go ahead and get started. The topic of today's training is the endorsement process. We did target that more so for chairs and deans, but there may be some folks besides department chairs and college deans who need to do some endorsing. So welcome. If you're here and you're not a chair or a dean and you need to endorse, you are in the right place. We're going to start with some introductions so everyone knows who the team is that will be supporting you with InfoEd. My name is Stacy Wisniewski. I was brought on board recently to take point on the training and support process. So I'm helping with developing materials that you can use as references and developing content and format for the training sessions themselves. Our resident InfoEd expert who knows the system inside and out is Jamie Van Natta. She is going to be doing the site demonstration for the InfoEd piece of today's training. And then, of course, our fearless leader, Dr. Rick Francis, he is here helping out with all kinds of things and providing general direction and support as needed. Some see our photos there in case we're new people to you or you've seen our names and haven't seen our faces before. Now you can kind of put it all together. Before we get started on content, just some housekeeping tidbits to get out of the way. If you are not super familiar with Teams or you did not know that Teams had this function, you can turn on live captioning on your side, on your machine. If you use the 3 ellipses in the top menu bar of your screen where it says more, there's an option to turn those on if you want them. Again, we are recording the training and captioning is an option with that recording as well if you come back and watch it again. Feel free to post questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand or interrupt if it's a burning question and you don't want to wait till the end. We will address that as quickly as we are able to. We want to make sure that you leave today feeling like you got your most burning questions responded to and that you have at least a starting point of where to go and what to do with this new platform that we're rolling out. In the meantime, though, if you can keep your microphone muted, it helps with the echo that sometimes comes through our machines and will help with distortion so audio can be a little more clear for everyone. So what are we here to talk about today? Well, first of all, we want to share with you some of the value adds that we believe InfoEd brings to the research community at the University of Toledo. So we'll talk about those for a couple of minutes just to give you sort of a global perspective on what this platform can do for you and how it can better serve you and support you. We are specifically going to talk about endorsement. So we'll do a very brief overview of the endorsement process in general. Then we will go right into a detailed demonstration of the endorsement process in InfoEd, including a brief introduction of how to assign a delegate in the event that you have someone else who's going to be handling some of your endorsement duties in the routing process for proposals. And at the end, we have questions. We'll have time for questions and a link to some resources and additional information. Some of the benefits of InfoEd. Well, overall, it's more collaborative. So various people working on a project will be able to work a little more unified and seamlessly in this system than what you may have experienced before. Additionally, routing is automatic, which is a key piece of the endorsement process. So when something gets submitted in InfoEd that needs to be endorsed, that process will happen automatically, and people are not going to need to run around getting signatures on a piece of paper or forwarding a scanned document to various stakeholders for signature. It's going to all be handled through the system, which I think is fabulous and fantastic. Email notifications will keep you notified in terms of what you have waiting for you to endorse and any other assignments or duties that may be relevant for your role. You will have all your records in one place. So instead of searching here, there, and everywhere for where certain pieces of information are located, InfoEd will serve as one easy to access repository of records and things that need to be handled or taken care of in the proposal and endorsement process. InfoEd does eliminate the proposal intake form, which if you've submitted proposals via that form in the past, you're familiar with that as the very initial step for getting started on a research proposal endeavor. InfoEd is going to replace that. The routing process through InfoEd for endorsement will replace the RSP 100. Anyone in the past who was required to sign an RSP 100 for various reasons will now do that process through InfoEd instead of using that form. InfoEd replaces the Excel budget worksheet, which is nice for those who are developing their budgets and want to see how it all comes together with various components and pieces to that. And there will be training specifically for the budget later this week and next week. More on that to come. And also InfoEd will replace the RSP cost match form. There is a way to do that process in InfoEd, again, eliminating an extraneous form that you have to keep track of and manually submit to various people. Also, once InfoEd is fully implemented, which this will be a somewhat of a staged rollout as we get all the different components of the site up and running for folks. But once it's fully implemented, there will be a faster and more streamlined process between award notification and account setup. So ultimately, when it's all said and done, you will be able to get to your money a little quicker and a little more easily to get those expenditures going so you can do the project that you're setting out to do. Just a note about the rollout process, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Francis for a minute to highlight a couple of things. This is our basic timeline depending on the type of proposal you're going to be submitting, and I'll let Rick say a few things about that.
Right. Well, as you can see, we're already past conflict of interest disclosures. That started yesterday. We'll provide any help you need with that, and we do have a recording on our site to walk you through that process. The IRFO, I suppose it's possible you don't know that one. That's an internal grant program or series of programs, university research funding opportunities. And several of the programs will have submissions coming up soon where those submissions need to go through InfoEd. So the letters of intent are due for the major programs on the 17th. That has to go through InfoEd. And the other ones that have rolling deadlines, publication, subvention, and small grants are also due there. And the rest of the information on here is about external agencies, so nonprofit, industry sponsors, other government sponsors. These are coming out every few weeks starting this month. And then we have a little break there before we launch into the federal proposals. The ones that are due after January 1 start with National Science Foundation and then NIH February 5th. And so on. So we're trying to make sure that we have time for everyone to get acquainted with the system, to prepare proposals in it with a lot of help from our grants coordinators who are getting up to speed on it too. That's all I've got to say on it.
Awesome, thank you. You do that a little better than I do, so I appreciate you stepping in for that. Also, I want to mention that for NIH and some of those bigger sponsors, we will have system-to-system functionality, which is another big benefit of bringing in InfoEd to help with the proposal development and tracking process. So about endorsement overall, the process in terms of who needs to be involved in endorsement is not changing. Anyone who was previously required to sign an RSP 100 for various roles and responsibilities will still be required to do the endorsement process, but it'll just happen in InfoEd instead of on the RSP 100 form. So that's really the big change. We're switching that process over to InfoEd and not doing the form. Something else that is changing is that you will be able to do the chairs and deans endorsement process parallel instead of serial. So instead of having to wait for one person to sign it and then move it on to the next person, chairs and deans will receive notification at the same time that an endorsement requirement is waiting for them. You don't have to sign it at the same time. If you have a process in your department or college where one person has to sign first and the other sign second, you can do that, but you'll both receive the notification at the same time and can then handle that depending on your department policy. Also, requests for endorsement will come to your email automatically as soon as an investigator submits a proposal that requires endorsement. That notification will come out to you and let you know something is waiting for you to take action. And you will receive email confirmations along the way of what is happening with things. Specifically, the PI will receive confirmation that their proposal has been received and where their proposal is in the process. All right, I'm about to turn the reins over to Jamie so she can demonstrate our system functionality for you. Just a quick note that when you log into the InfoEd site on your computers, you will be directed to the Tower login page and your UTAG credentials will get you in. So just a reminder there that it should be an easy and seamless process. If for some reason you are not able to get into InfoEd, there's a couple of known bugs that we're working on. Please contact us and we will address that with you and get that handled as quickly as we are able to. Jamie, are you all set to demo the site?
I sure am.
Awesome. I'll stop sharing and you can take over.
Okay. All right. So since Stacy so kindly explained to you that normally what you would see is the Tower login page, I'm not going to bother explaining that. I have actually logged in. This is this is our test system. So there's some stuff in here that isn't perfect. Doesn't look as good as prod, but our production environment. But our test system, I have also logged in as a generic account. So our generic person for today is Mr. Test Chair. So this is just a test department that has a test profile that we are using to route things around. So the first thing I wanted to show you today is this is what happens when you log in, but I did get a notification in my email that there was something for me to do. So I'm going to pop that up over here and bring it in over here. So there we go. So this is it's probably pretty small. I don't know if I can make that any bigger, but it is the email that you would get from the system that says you are receiving this message because you're an investigator in your department or college has been named on a sponsored proposal. So it gives you some details about that and it gives you some instructions on what to do. So you do not have to read through this right now, but it does come to you fully fleshed out with all the instructions right in place and a link to get you directly to where you need to go right here. But I'm going to show you the other way today. The other thing I want to show you, well, I'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so when you first log in, if you don't go through that link, if you just log into the system, you're going to land on your dashboard. So that's what they call this. Or actually, I'm sorry, they call it the portal. The dashboard is something else, but they call this your portal. And so a little quick orientation to your portal here. You have this top menu here. We call this the top menu or the blue bar menu. You also have a menu to the left here, which is pretty short, just proposals and spin. And spin, for anybody who's not familiar, is our proposal is an opportunity finding mechanism. So if spin, we've been parts of spin for quite some time. It's also the same company that makes InfoEd makes spin. And so we have that, it's kind of integrated here. You also see this kind of middle ground gray area here with two white boxes in it. And these white boxes are called widgets. And that is, these two boxes right here are mandatory. So they are on your page regardless of what you do. One of them is for helping you to create your financial conflict of interest disclosure. So as Rick mentioned, that opened up on Monday. So everybody has to do their conflict of interest disclosure in InfoEd now, regardless of whether you've done it already in our old COI site, even if it's still not delinquent or late or anything there, you're still going to have to, unfortunately, come back in InfoEd and do it here as well. And then this other widget for requesting a new entity is when you're inside your disclosure and you have something to disclose. If you cannot find it in the list that already exists, you would use this process to request a new entity. So, but for today, oh, and I do want to mention too that, sorry, I'll move this out of the way. On your page here, on your middle content panel, you also have the ability to add widgets and remove widgets and move them around. So this little portal configurations button down here allows you to make some changes. So for example, if I wanted to put that entity request over in the other column, I can do that. And I can add additional widgets here that are available to me. So if I wanted to add, for example, the bookmarks widget, I could do that. And so obviously this particular person doesn't have any bookmarked items right now, but they could. So this little portal configuration is going to allow you to kind of reorganize your screen to your liking, and it's just personal for you. So you cannot remove these two widgets, but you can remove any widgets that you added before, so that you added yourself. So these two have to stay, but they can be reorganized to your liking. So for today, actually nothing in here has anything to do with today. Today is about endorsement. So you could have clicked the link in your email, but where else do you find endorsement? The things that you need to endorse, they're in your assignments. So if I just click this assignments here, it's going to replace my widgets with this other widget, which is called assignments. And here is the assignment that I have to do. So I got an email that was titled endorsement request, and it gave me the number, and it gave me the last name of the PI, which in this case happens to be another one of our test accounts that just the last name is PI. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and it's going to open up what we call the reviewer dashboard. So this is where you're actually going to record your decision. And I understand that's a little frustrating to record your decision when in fact you haven't actually seen what you're making a decision about yet. So this reviewer dashboard here actually provides you immediate access to everything that you're going to need to make a decision. So up here in the little header area, you're going to see some links. And one of these takes you to the proposal development record. This link right here that says proposal development record, they both go to the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and go there right now. And what this is going to do is open up yet another window. So you'll notice that InfoEd kind of likes to stack these windows on top of each other. So if you're hunting for something, it's possible that it's already open and just hiding under something else. I tend to like to maximize the window just so that I'm looking at everything I can look at, but I'll make it a little bit, I'll do a little bit like this. I'll extend it, and then I'll make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. So this is the proposal endorsement, or this is the proposal record itself. So a PI, in my case, the gentleman, or the account's name is Demo PI, has created this record. They opened up they clicked create, they added some information, and they filled all these pieces out already. I actually took this opportunity from grants.gov. So this is a legitimate grants.gov opportunity from the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences. It has an opportunity number, and it's using the 424 short form. So if this was real, I could submit this and it would go directly to grants.gov. But what I wanted to show you today was just what you can expect to see typically in a proposal record that you would be looking at for endorsement. So some of them will be system to system, some of them won't be, but the common elements that you see right here, they're going to be common across the board. So it lands on this setup questions, which just gives you kind of some demographic information about this. There isn't actually anything you technically need to review here. The meat and potatoes of the review happens on these next three pages. So one of the pages that we have here is what we call an E form, and it is the intake/endorsement form. So as Stacy mentioned, we are replacing our RSP 100 and our intake form, and this is the replacement. This is the E form that serves as that replacement. So it has some questions from the intake form on it. It also has some questions from the RSP 100 form on it, and it helps drive some functionality based on the answers to those questions. So in this particular scenario, I am trying to set up a history of archery museum here in the University of Toledo, at the University of Toledo. And I have answered all these questions regarding that. So I read the opportunity. I said it's coming from SPIN. Actually, it was coming from grants.gov, but either one. I looked at the requirements, and it does in fact require that it's coming from a 501c3. So I'm going to have to talk to the UT Foundation, which I haven't done yet. All these questions I answered as a researcher. And so, depending on who you are in the endorsement process, either the PI themselves or a co-investigator or a chair or dean, you might be more interested in different things that are listed here. But as a chair or a dean, you would probably want to read through this entire form, just kind of see what's going on here. So we get a little, quick description and then some more demographic questions. Are we going to need space? Are we going to need intellectual property? Is there going to be a grant match? Is there going to be cost share? And in this case, this is a mandatory cost share opportunity. So, I'm going to show you guys where you're going to find that. So some research attributes, and then I can scroll down here and I can see the personnel that are going to be engaged. So this is the key personnel list. And that's also on another page. So you'll see that a second time here in a second. And then our shared credit. So in this case, we're just giving 100% share of the credit to the PI, but this table could have included Joe co-investigator. You'll notice that shared credit is different from FNA distribution. So they are in two separate places. So you have to fill in the shared credit, and that could be different than where the FNA indirects are returned to. Additionally, we have like a little budget summary down here. The budget tool is where all this information was placed, but there's a summary of it here. It does not include the cost share information. So we're gonna have to show you how to do that in the budget. But it just does to give a quick breakdown of like what the FNA rate is and how much is going to get recovered. And then this down here is where is it going to be distributed. So we have some new rules for FNA distribution. There can only be a maximum of 4 departments where the FNA can go. And then the FNA obviously needs to add up to 100%, but you can split this a couple of different ways. But we have limited the number of combinations because it was not supportable, not feasible to continue to just allow this to be any number of combinations of indirects. So if any way you can, these are actually drop downs when this is editable. Any way you can make 100% is a legitimate combination. So as a chair or a dean, you're basically looking over this and saying, okay, well, that's what the return is. This is how much the direct costs are going to be. Here's the people that are involved. Here's any attributes. Oh, there's mandatory cost share. There's the mandatory cost share. I'm going to have to look at the budget. So that's actually the next page in the proposal development record. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It again opens in a separate window. So now I've got, if you're counting, 4 windows open. I see somebody has their hand up, so I'm going to ask, I'll take a pause here. And if you want to type that in the chat or you want to.
I did stick it in the chat, but just a real quick question. It mentions key personnel. Are these the same key personnels we're going to have on the IRB side of the world?
That's a great question.
Does InfoEd connect to IRB in any way?
Okay, so yes, 2 separate questions. So typically the key personnel here are going to be key personnel that you would list on the proposal itself. So whatever you're submitting to the grant, the key personnel are the key personnel. It will connect to IRB manager. So when we don't have, I don't have an example of that today, but basically when you're done with your proposal, there's another view of the proposal that's going to allow you to search your protocols in IRB manager and connect them to this, and it will keep them updated in terms of like if it gets approved on the IRB manager side, that information will be brought into InfoEd. So you will have a connection there. You're going to continue to apply to do human subjects and IRB and IACOOK over in IRB manager, but the connection will be made in InfoEd. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I needed to know, because key personnel have specific roles and they might not be the same specific roles across both systems, but we use the same term. And so sometimes that can be confusing.
Okay. Yep. No, that's a great point. Thank you very much. So yes, this is mostly focused on what you're sending to the sponsor. So key personnel for the sponsor are going to go here. Was there another question?
Dr. Merrick, we are taking notes on requested or recommended additional trainings for the future. So things that are specialized like that, we'll make a note and see what kind of tools and training we can develop for it.
Perfect, thanks.
Was there another hand up while we were? No? Okay. All right, then I will continue on. So again, this is just a made up budget. Obviously, the history of archery is not actually a museum here at the University of Toledo, but I did make this up a little bit with some reality in it. So what I was trying to convey was I want to put together kind of a lecture series, you might say. And so I have to bring in some consultants. I have to bring in some people there for travel. I need to bring in some equipment. And so I basically put all those items down here in my budget, including myself and my co-investigator, who are putting a little bit of effort on this. And so what's most important is when you first look at a budget, if there is cost share on it, you're immediately going to see this little thing here, which tells you that cost sharing is active. If there's no little sign, no cost share, no problem. But here in this case, you can see that it's open. And what we're looking at here is just the view of the stuff that we're sending to the sponsor. If I want to see the things that I, as a chair, because that's who I'm logged in as, I'm going to be responsible for, I'm going to flip this to institution. And when I flip the source view to institution, now I can see, oh, I'm going to end up paying for part of PI's salary this much. I'm going to end up paying for the travel to bring in those consultants and part of the supplies that were coming in. If I want to just see what does the whole proposal look like, I can go here to this project view, and now it's going to show me the totals and everything for the whole project. So you can see overall, or I can see just what are we sending to the sponsor. So there's just the sponsor totals, and then I can see what am I as a chair in my department going to be asked to pay for. And so that's those totals. So you have three different views immediately of the budget. And this is, of course, across the whole period. In this case, it's a 2-year time period, but you can zero in on either particular period. You can also see kind of a summary of the cost sharing by clicking the cost sharing menu item on the left. So again, you can see at this point then for PI, it's kind of a 50-50 split between the sponsor and the institution. The sponsor's paying for all of the consultant services and half of the supplies, and UT is paying for all of the travel. So in this particular opportunity, it was the cost share was 50-50. It had to be 50-50. So this is pretty close to 50-50. So you can poke around this budget some more. There's also a justification. So like there's a budget justification document that you can see here. Those are the big key factors. You can also look at the F&A recovery. So you'll see that like the F&A, what you're getting back on each of these things. So that's the F&A screen. There's a lot here, and I get it. We don't have time to like dig deep into the budget today. And obviously this is in view mode because it's in endorsement right now, so no changes can be made to it. But please, stay tuned for future trainings on budget, and we will again, of course, be recording those and posting them on the website, because I know budget is a big deal, and it's learning a new tool is hard to do, and I totally understand that. So we are open and available for help, for questions, for anything, and we will be the first budget training is coming this week. So please stay tuned for additional trainings on just overall proposal and overall budget preparation. So I'm going to go ahead and click done here. I've seen everything I need to see as a chair. And then I can also, again, look at the personnel list here. So this was the key personnel that are going to the sponsor. There's only just the 2 of us. And so that's really easy. But if there were non-key personnel, they would show up here. They would also be in the budget listed as non-key, but just calling that out that there is a specific page for personnel as well. So as a chair, those are the things I think I'm most concerned about, like who's going to be on it, how long or how much time are they going to devote to it, what are my responsibilities, what am I taking on, what kind of cost share am I taking on. These other forms down here are the government forms, the ones that would be going system to system. And in order to route, those aren't necessarily, they don't have to be filled in at this moment. Most of them actually are, but they're not necessary for the routing part. What's important for routing is having the budget and the personnel list and this intake endorsement form completed. So I think I have reviewed everything that I need to review as a chair. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to pause for a second and answer questions about just kind of the proposal development record itself, what we've seen so far.
I guess the question that I would have is if I see something and I'm not satisfied that I think it's the way that we want it to be, what happens then? You know,
Yeah,
I can approve
clear.
if it's good, and if it's not good, where does it go, and what do we do next?
I am so glad you asked because I'm about to address that. So this record itself is not editable because during endorsement, if you're signing something, it can't be a moving target. So we have gone ahead and said, nope, everything is not editable. So nothing on here, you could make any changes. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I can also just move it over to my other screen if I'm trying to take notes or do anything like that. But I'm just going to close it for today for the purposes that we have. And now look, I'm back to my reviewer dashboard, right? So I had like 3 windows on top of this or 2 windows on top of this at one point. Now I'm back down to my reviewer dashboard. So this is where you're going to record that decision. So as you mentioned, maybe everything looks fine. I'm going to point out 2 more little things. Number 1, because this came from grants.gov, I actually have a direct link to the opportunity itself. So I can look through this and make sure that the person who filled it out, the researcher or the PI, followed all the rules and that they didn't put too much cost share in, that they met the requirement without going over, that kind of thing. So that's a bonus because it just draws that in automatically for you. And it also has a link directly to the proposal endorsement form, which in some cases is all you really need to do this look-see. If there's no cost share, if there's no nothing, if it's very simple, maybe you don't need to go into the whole proposal development record because this does have the summary of all the people and the budget. And if that's enough for you, then you don't have to look at the whole record itself. But obviously, we recommend that you review the full record. Just in case. So just to make sure you know what you're getting into and what you're signing. So we have these links. And basically, in order to make a decision, I have to say, I have looked at these. All right. So I've looked at these 2. This is I looked at it, but I mean, I could also say not applicable because it was part of this. So I have to have chosen something in each one of these boxes before these buttons become alive. So I have to say, okay, I've reviewed everything and now I can make a decision. So you have 3 decisions to make, right? Number 1 is everything is good to go. I don't see any problems. I'm just going to approve this as is and move on with the day, right? So that's the simplest possible thing. The next thing that might happen is you could say, oh, all right, I would approve this if they make a couple of little changes. Like maybe, for example, you thought the shared credit looked a little bit strange and you would like Joe Co-Investigator to get 5% shared credit for this project. So that in that case, you would say, I'm going to put some comments in here. These are comment boxes I'll get to in a second, but I'm going to put some comments in and I'm going to say approve with modifications, meaning I'm going to let this thing move forward, but I'm going to register the things that I think need to be fixed. And your third option here is this cannot move forward. There are some fatal flaws here. There are some flaws that have to be dealt with. And I'm just going to stop this thing in its tracks. So as soon as anybody clicks disapprove, the route is over. Anybody who got a notification, they're not going to be able to see their assignment is going to go away. So their reviewer dashboard is going to go away. They won't have anything to review anymore. The proposal is obviously still there. But the ability to review it goes away because this decision stops the route entirely. It sends an email to the PI that says your endorsement has not made it all the way through, and it does share the comments that are coming in these little boxes here. So go forward with no comments. Go forward with a couple of little easy to fix things, or stop right here. And we're going to have to start over with some big changes. Do those decisions kind of make sense? Well, I don't need to ask again. Raise your hand if those decisions don't make sense. In the meantime,
the quick question would be on the approve with modifications. Does that come back through us once they make the mods, or is it simply I'm signing off, make the changes, and I'm assuming that they get done?
Yeah, that is actually a call that the grants coordinator would make, because if you allow it to go through, and there's changes that they think should go back through the whole routing process, then they're going to, and there's time to do that. This is the other thing. is there time before the deadline to be able to go back through the entire routing process. And if they decide, if they think that the changes were too big, or that there's time to go back through the entire routing process, then they will do that. They will send it all the way back, and they'll make the changes and send it all the way back through. Unfortunately, if the change is too big, or there isn't enough time to make it before the deadline, then it's kind of it's a hard decision to make, and it's going to be up to the grants coordinator to say, look, I'm going to move this forward with the understanding that we're still going to have to make some changes, but we're going to accept the routing as is. So it's kind of, it's a joint decision in that you are deciding, are the changes that I'm suggesting like stopper changes that I want everybody to re-endorse, or are they sufficient? Is it sufficient to just state my changes and let it move forward, including those changes? So as a reviewer, any other reviewer that's on this, including co-investigators, including additional chairs and deans, they're all going to see your comments depending on which box you put them in. So that's why I'm about to explain those boxes. But basically, so you could say, I would approve this if Joe co-investigator got 5% shared credit, and then your chair could also say, oh, no, I think he deserves 10. But you could both move it forward that, and then when it gets to the grants coordinator, they'd say, oh, okay, everybody says 10, fine, we'll move on. So it's kind of it's by virtue of being parallel, it does mean that there's not as clear, like, I approve everything up to this point, right? It's kind of more collaborative, but also kind of messier. Does that make sense?
That's helpful. The ones that are more likely in my particular situation are where an investigator puts together a grant and didn't put any effort for themselves on in terms of salary recovery. And we're pretty loath to approve a grant that you're going to put time and effort on if you're not recovering salary on it. So that's the piece that I don't want it to go forward if that doesn't get done, because I can't afford to continue paying for those.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. So that would be a disapprove in your case. You just say, look, no, you gotta put effort on this. We got to recover some of your salary on this. And then obviously you would put that sort of comment in really any of these boxes. You could share it with everyone. You could put it specifically to the PI.
Rather than an approve with mods, because I would think of that. Okay, make sure you put your salary recovery on it, and the rest of it's fine. To me, feels like approve with mods. So that's helpful to have this dialogue.
Yeah, well, I think too, you also have to take into account, like, when is the deadline, right? Yeah. You don't want to have to, if there's 6 more people to approve this after you maybe don't want to say stop and start over, right? Or maybe you do. It's going to be a judgment call for you, but also for the grants coordinator at the end. So
well, that's very helpful to think of it that way. Thanks.
Okay, so we have 4 comment boxes here. If I had my druthers, we would only have 1, but we do have some options here. And depending on who the audience for the comment is, when you look at the proposal record, and I meant to show you guys this and I didn't, but I'll show you in a second, that's where these appear. So if you just put it in the everyone box, then anybody who has access to the record can see your comment. And so that covers a lot of cases, really. The only other box
and
that
your comment has your name attached to it, so people will know who said what.
That is absolutely true, and an excellent point, Stacy. Thank you for pointing that out. Anonymity is not a thing, so you will your name is going to be associated with everything that you put in these boxes. But depending on which box you use, sometimes, for example, if you put in something to be shared with other reviewers, the PI is not immediately going to see that. The administrators, for example, would be your research administrator, not necessarily your other reviewers. So, but I think it's just good practice to, like, be kind, be polite, and just put it in the share with everyone box. That's much easier in general on everyone. So the other thing you'll notice on this, that I just expanded this screen, is that Mr. Joe, co-investigator, has already endorsed this project, and he put in a comment to everyone that says he's very excited to be part of it. So so good comments can go in here too. But any previous comments that were made by previous endorsers are going to be in this box right here. So if you're a dean waiting for your chair to comment, it would be in this box here as well. So the other thing that you can see on here, which is both in the proposal development record and also here, is this route tab. So this route tab actually allows you to see how far has this route already gone and who signed off on it. So you can kind of read this from top to bottom as like step 1, the PI was informed. Okay, that's good. Our GC was me, and they approved it with no comments. It passed the GC check. So then the PI was informed that it passed the GC check. And then this is our Joe and co-investigator who was also endorsed it. And here's his comment down here. And that's the date and time when he endorsed it. So now that was all the key personnel. So the PI got a notification that all the key personnel had signed off. And then it went to chair and dean. So that was the email that I showed you. And so I'm logging in as chair right now, and I'm about to log my decision. But if I was dean and chair had already made a decision, then I could see that, and I could see when that was and what that decision was. So there's the decision over here. So it's visible to anybody with access to this record. It's visible to anybody in this route to see who has previously said what about this particular proposal. So this is also kind of helpful, I think, in terms of just keeping track of how far has this come, who's said what about what. And if somebody had made an approve with modifications and their comment was down here and they said, oh, I think, Joe co-investigator ought to get 10%. And then somebody else said, oh, I think you should only get 5%. Then when it gets again to the grants coordinator, which is one of our last checks here, it would be up to the grants coordinator to go back and say, okay, PI, do you think 5? Do you think 10? Is this enough to like stop? Do you want everybody to re-sign it? If there's time for all of that, of course, right? So there would be the grants coordinator is the last step, and they also basically collate all of the comments and make sure that everything that was commented upon then gets accomplished after, if it is moving forward and those changes are relatively minor and they can just be made right after the endorsement. So endorsement history or active route in progress, whatever you want to think about it. So you can see that here from your reviewer dashboard, or you can also see it. I can go back to the reviewer. I can go back to the proposal record. It is also in the proposal record. So if you happen to have this open already, you can go to attachments and routing. I'll make this bigger. And you can click this little scroll, and that gives you the same view. So it's everything, everyone who's made a decision, when they were made a decision, and any comments that they made. So the routing is very transparent. It's very available. It's available in multiple places. And so it is very clear who signed what, who said what, and when they did it. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that record and go back to my reviewer dashboard. Are there any questions about how I would see who's already signed off and if they said anything? Raise your hand or... Okay, so I am just going to, for the purposes of our demonstration today, I'm just going to approve this because we only have about 15 minutes left. We have some last minute, more additional slides to show you guys. But for this purpose, I'm just going to hit the approve button. So when I hit the approve button, I get this. So this was also used to be on the RSP 100 form. And because I'm a chair, I am the co-investigator and the key personnel get a different attestation statement here. They get the full, I know my responsibilities. I promise I'll be good. I haven't read through it in a while, but it's quite lengthy, the attestation statement or the certification statement for them. But in this case, we just want to make sure that we're reminding you that, you, by agreeing here, you are agreeing to any space allocations, salary arrangements, all of that stuff, cost share commitments. And so if you click accept here, then this is just done. If you click decline, then it's just in limbo. Like you have neither approved it nor disapproved it, and it's going to stay in that same route, in that same place in the route until you make a decision about approving or disapproving. So I urge you don't decline, because that doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't send it anywhere. It doesn't tell anybody. And it does, it basically places this whole thing on hold. And then we have to track it down. We have to figure out, like, why did it end up on hold? Who said, who declined? And it's going to cause some consternation. So hopefully you have reviewed, but if you get to that and you say, oh shoot, I forgot to look for my cost share, you can close out of that and come back and look at the cost share and be like, oh yeah, okay, nope, that looks good, fine, moving on.
And Jamie, let's point out too, InfoEd has some unusual functionality like stacking screens, but also on the reviewer dashboard, you have to have disabled pop-up blockers in order to submit that decision. And we have instructions in our help guide that we're developing on how to do it for each type of browser, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Edge. But yeah, if you don't disable pop-up blockers, the whole thing gets stuck.
Thank you very much, Stacy. That was actually item number 1 on my list, and I totally spaced on it. So that's my bad for not pulling up for not putting the agenda right in front of my face. Yes, so unfortunately, InfoEd functionality for the reviewer dashboard does require that you have pop-up blockers turned off. So there are instructions for doing that in your favorite browser, or all 3 of your browsers, or 4 of your browsers. If you like, if you have a Mac, we have the Safari instructions as well. And again, that's in our help guide, linked on our website, which we're about to show you. But yeah, unfortunately, you could get to the screen, you could hit approve, and it could just spin and spin or not do anything if you don't have those pop-ups turned off. Specifically for InfoEd, you don't have to turn pop-ups off for everything if you don't like them, which I don't. The instructions are to disable them specifically just for InfoEd. Okay, so that is the end of my demonstration of the endorsement process. Now, I did want to do a really quick run through of the delegation situation. So I'm going to pause for just a second and make sure we have no more questions about endorsement. All right, excellent. So this is going to be pretty quick because we're going to run out of time here very shortly. I want to respect everyone's time, but I do want to point out, like, what happens if for some reason I'm going to be on vacation and I want somebody else to take over my endorsement responsibilities for the time that I am gone, or I just have someone in administration that does this work for me. So I am currently still logged in as the chair, and I'm going to go to my profile. And I'm going to see in this little setups here, I'm going to see delegates. So I'm going to click delegates. Now, I have already, as MC Test Chair, have already set up myself, my real self, as a delegate. So if you see that there could be someone here already, but in most cases there won't be. And so I'm just going to add a new delegate. So I'm going to click the add button up here, and I'm going to say, in the meantime, while I'm gone, I want my dean to be able to sign for me. So I'm going to search for the name of that person. I'm going to say, okay, it's this person that I want. And then I'm going to say, I want that person to see my messages and my work queue. And then I'm going to click save. So when I did that, it brought this person over and they can see my messages and my work queue. There is one more step. I'm going to click on this person. And now I'm going to say, what can this person do? Which modules can they access? Because just by seeing this stuff, that doesn't mean they can actually do anything. They can just see what's in my assignments and what messages have been sent to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click add here. And you'll see this is kind of a preview. It's like a little peek into what's coming, because we don't have all of these modules in place yet, but we will. So for the time being, the only modules that are in place are COI, proposal development, and proposal tracking. But in our case, this is the most common thing that you would do for delegation, is to say, okay, I want this person to be able to sign off in the proposal development and proposal tracking modules. So I'm going to go ahead and click select there. And this is going to give me an annoyingly imbalanced screen here. And then it's going to say, okay, for each one of those modules, what specifically do you want that person to be able to do? So again, in our help instructions, we have the most common setups that you would do for a particular person. So in this case, I want them to be CC'd on any emails that are sent to me in these two modules. I also want them to be able to sign for me and complete any assignments that were sent to me. So these are the most common checkboxes that you would do to assign someone the ability to like sign for you. You don't have to worry about screen level access or record level access, but you could give those as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And now I've set up Test Dean to be able to access things for Test Chair. So that's the quick and dirty. Again, we have a help guide on this. It's going up later today, most likely. And so you will be able to see like a step-by-step and an explanation. We'll need an explanation of what all those checkboxes mean and what that means that people can do for you. But at any point, you can remove the people that you have assigned as delegates. So if it's just for a temporary situation, like you're on vacation, that's great. If it's a long-term situation, because this person typically does certain functions for you, that's fine too. You are in complete control of who can act on your behalf in InfoEd. Do you have any questions about that right now? All right, I think if I do really quick, I check my little agenda here. And the only thing I forgot to say was we will help you in setting up delegates if you need us to. And please do feel free to send us an email at infoed@utoledo.edu, and we will get back to you as soon as possible to help you with anything specific that you need in terms of delegation or endorsement for that matter. So with that, I will turn it back over to Stacy, and she will continue with our little PowerPoint.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, the way Teams does PowerPoint is make me start like from the beginning again, but that's all right. I'll get there quickly. So I know that you may have more questions than answers at this point, learning a new system with lots of specific details. And I know you all want to do a really good job, being able to review those details thoroughly. So we have additional trainings coming your way. Specifically, we have submitting your COI disclosures tomorrow on Teams. On Thursday, we have the first of our big proposal/budget orientation trainings. That's really going to be the meat and potatoes of what I think a lot of folks are going to want to know about how InfoEd works. There are more budget and proposal trainings next week. You can see those on our help site with all the dates for everything we have scheduled right now. I just didn't want to overload this slide with putting everything on it. And then for anybody who's maybe looking at some NSF submissions, we do have an in-person training that we're going to host over in North Engineering in one of the labs, and that'll be in November. Everyone is welcome. It says engineering, but everyone is welcome to come to that if you want. And like Jamie said, we are happy to do some one-to-one training with you if needed, especially if you're trying to figure out how to get delegates set up. We can train your delegates as well if we need to. So please just reach out to us. That is what we're here for. We want this process to go well for you, and we want to work out any kinks or bugs that come up along the way. So contact us as needed. How can you contact us? Jamie mentioned the infoed@utoledo.edu. So that is a great way to be in touch with us for all kinds of questions related to the system. And if you aren't sure where to start, you can always start with us, and we can redirect as needed if someone else is really more appropriate for your question. And also, if Rick or Jamie wants to grab the link to our FAQ page and put that in the chat for easy access, this is where you can find the recording from today's training. You can find help guides for various processes, including the endorsement process and the delegation process. Those will be ready later today, maybe tomorrow. got some things this afternoon where I'll be out of the office, so it might be tomorrow before a couple of those are up. But yes, please do check out that site. You can also find the rollout timeline there again in case you want to refresh yourself on deadlines. And you can see all of our upcoming trainings. If you have suggestions for topics or specialty trainings that you would like to see us develop, please let us know. If you would like to organize a training specifically for your unit or your college, we are happy to work with you on that as well. So just contact us and we will see what we can get worked out. Otherwise, that concludes the presentation part of our training today. We'll stick around for a few more minutes for anyone who might have questions or have a personalized, unique situation. We're happy to stick around for a couple of minutes and answer questions or discuss case-by-case scenarios. But otherwise, that's it for today. And we thank you for being here and for your engagement and your interaction and the questions you've asked so far. Thank you.